In a land parched by a relentless sun, the people of ancient Israel looked to the heavens, their faces etched with worry. The ground beneath their feet was a mosaic of cracks, a stark testament to a long and punishing drought. For 3.5 years, not a single drop of rain had fallen. The once fertile fields were now dust, and the rivers had vanished, leaving behind dry, winding scars on the earth. In their quiet desperation, the people prayed, but their prayers felt like whispers lost in the vast, empty sky. The land was suffering, and so were its people, caught in a famine that tested their bodies and their spirits. Amid this desolation, one man walked with a purpose that defied the hopelessness around him. His name was Elijah. Clad in a simple, rough robe, he traversed the barren landscape. His steps were steady, his gaze focused. He was a prophet, a man who spoke for the one true God, and he carried a message of divine authority. The wind tugged at his robe, but he moved with an unshakable confidence, his faith a shield against the despair that blanketed the kingdom. He was on a mission, heading toward the heart of the problem, the royal city of Samaria. His journey led him to the palace, where he stood before King Ahab. The air crackled with tension. Ahab, draped in the lavish robes of a king, represented a nation that had turned its back on God, embracing the worship of a false idol named Baal, at the urging of his wife, Queen Jezebel. He saw Elijah not as a messenger of hope, but as the source of all his troubles. His eyes burned with anger and accusation. "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" the king demanded, his voice laced with venom. But Elijah stood unbowed. He met the king's fury with a calm, unwavering resolve. "I have not troubled Israel," he declared, his voice ringing with authority. "But you and your father's house have, in that, you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord and have followed the Baals." Elijah wasn't there to argue. He was there to issue a challenge, a divine showdown to prove once and for all who the true God was. He proposed a contest on Mount Carmel, a public test of power between the God of Israel and the false god Baal. King Ahab, perhaps intrigued or cornered by Elijah's boldness, agreed. Messengers were dispatched across the kingdom, their voices echoing through desolate towns and villages, summoning the people to witness the great contest on Mount Carmel. From every corner of the land, a great migration began. Crowds of people, their faces a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and a desperate flicker of hope, made their way up the winding paths of the mountain. They gathered on the rocky slopes, a silent, expectant audience waiting for the drama to unfold. Soon, the prophets of Baal arrived, 450 of them, a formidable procession. They moved with an air of pride and confidence, their dark ceremonial robes flowing behind them. They were the religious elite, favored by the king and queen, and they expected an easy victory. They took their place, ready to defend their God. Then, Elijah stepped forward, his lone figure a stark contrast to the throng of Baal's prophets. He addressed the watching crowd, his voice cutting through the silence. "How long will you waver between two opinions?" he asked. "If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." His words hung in the air, a direct challenge to their divided hearts. The people, caught in their confusion and fear, remained silent. They didn't know what to believe, unsure which side to choose. Elijah then laid out the terms of the contest. "Let 2 bulls be given to us," he explained. "Let them choose 1 bull for themselves, cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it. I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it. Then you call on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God." The crowd murmured in agreement. It was a fair test. 2 stone altars were prepared, standing side by side on the mountain peak. The prophets of Baal chose their bull and meticulously prepared their sacrifice. They were confident. With their offering in place, they began their ritual. They cried out to their God, "O Baal, hear us." Their shouts echoed across the mountain as they danced and leaped around their altar, a frenzy of motion and noise. They called from morning until noon, their hands raised to the sky, begging for a sign. But the sky remained silent. The sun climbed higher, beating down on the mountain, but no fire came. As the hours passed, their confident chants turned into desperate cries. Their energy waned, and frustration began to set in. Elijah, watching from a distance, couldn't resist a moment of sharp irony. "Cry aloud," he taunted them, "for he is a god. Either he is meditating, or he is busy, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is sleeping and must be awakened." His words stung, and in their desperation, the prophets of Baal grew even more frantic, but their God remained silent. Their ritual ended in exhausted, humiliated failure. As the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, it was Elijah's turn. He stepped forward, and a hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to him. He didn't build a new altar. Instead, he found the ruins of an old altar to the Lord, one that had been torn down. Carefully, he began to rebuild it, using 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel, a powerful symbol of a nation he hoped to reunite under God. He repaired the altar, dug a deep trench around it, and arranged the wood for the sacrifice. Then, he did something that baffled everyone. He called for water. "Fill for large jars with water," he commanded, "and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood." The people watched in astonishment as servants brought the water and drenched the altar. But Elijah wasn't finished. "Do it a second time," he said, and they did. "Do it a third time," and for a third time, they poured water until the offering was completely soaked. The wood was saturated, and the trench around the altar was filled to the brim. There was no doubt now. No hidden trick, no possibility of a natural fire. The crowd gasped, whispering among themselves. What was he doing? With the stage set for an impossible miracle, Elijah stepped toward the waterlogged altar. He didn't shout or dance. He simply lifted his eyes toward heaven and prayed. His voice was calm, filled not with desperation, but with quiet, profound faith. "Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel," he began, "let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that you are the Lord God, and that you have turned their hearts back to you again." For a moment, absolute silence reigned on Mount Carmel. Every person held their breath, their gaze fixed on the dripping altar. And then, it happened. A blinding flash, a deafening roar. Fire fell from the sky. Not ordinary fire, but a brilliant, searing flame of divine power. It struck the altar with incredible force, consuming everything in an instant. It devoured the sacrifice, the wood, the very stones of the altar, and even licked up the water that filled the trench. The sheer power of the event was overwhelming. The bright, holy fire reflected in the wide, astonished eyes of the crowd. A wave of awe and terror washed over them. As one, the people fell to their knees, their faces pressed to the ground. Then, a single voice cried out, followed by another and another, until the entire mountain thundered with a unified shout, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" Their doubt was burned away, replaced by absolute certainty. The prophets of Baal stood defeated, their pride shattered, their voices silenced. King Ahab watched, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. Everything he had believed in had just been proven powerless. In the midst of it all, Elijah stood quietly. The fire had done its work. The hearts of the people were turned back to God. As a sense of peace settled over the mountain, the sky, once a brassy, cloudless dome, began to change. A new hope was dawning. Elijah, his task complete, stood alone on the mountain. He was not triumphant, but humble and thankful. He had been a vessel for God's power, a witness to His glory. And as he looked out from the peak of Mount Carmel, he saw a small cloud, no bigger than a man's hand, rising from the sea. The long drought was about to end. The land and its people were on the path to renewal. Thank you for watching. We hope this story of faith and courage has inspired you. If you'd like to see more stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.